Today I'm going to share with you my rosacea story. I'm going to tell you about the 6 stages I went through to totally eradicate my symptoms. And if it worked for me, then it could work for you too. So keep watching, because what have you got to lose? Except perhaps your rosacea. Doctors will tell you that the cause of rosacea is unknown and that there's no cure. They'll also tell you that your only option is to treat your symptoms with medications, probably for the rest of your life. And they'll also warn you that the condition might worsen with age. Well, I'm here to tell you that your doctor's rosacea diagnosis is bullshit. No medical doctor ever cured rosacea. The best they can hope for is to temporarily mask the symptoms using pharmaceuticals. And in some persons, these medical interventions can even worsen the condition over time. But I'm going to take you down a very different path. My journey with rosacea forced me to address all the potential causes of the condition and then to rectify those issues in a logical, systematic manner. First, we need to jump back 15 years to a rather dark period in my life when rosacea first took hold. Now, I'm sure that those of you who suffer from this adult skin condition will understand exactly what I'm about to say next. Because to put it bluntly, rosacea truly is a fucking curse. It literally appears out of the blue, generally taking hold within a very short period of time, and it can absolutely dominate your life, destroying your self-confidence in the process. Nowadays, however, I'm 100% rosacea free, and I never suffer relapses. To achieve this, I made only a few simple changes in my life. Nothing difficult, nothing expensive. Anyone can do it, and I guarantee that anybody who follows my example will experience positive results. So here's my story detailing exactly what I did to permanently eradicate my rosacea. Back in 2007, when I first noticed my initial rosacea symptoms, I just assumed it was mild acne. Now that in itself was a little confusing because I hadn't had acne since I was a teenager and I was now 47. So I tried using various medicated face wash products and spot creams, but they just seemed to make things worse, causing more redness and drying on my skin. So at this point all I'm thinking is, what the hell is this on my face? And to make things worse, at the time I was working as an anti-aging consultant, being paid to give health advice to my clients. So you can imagine how that must have looked. Would you take health advice from somebody with a red spotty complexion? Probably not, and who would blame you? So I stopped all acne treatments there and then and decided to focus my efforts on identifying the condition and hopefully getting the appropriate treatment. Well, of course, it didn't take long to figure out that rosacea was the most likely candidate. So I thought, great, now I know what it is, I'll simply get an appointment with my doctor and I'll have my lovely clear skin back in no time. But oh, how soon that feeling of confidence gets dashed. I wonder how many of us have heard the following words uttered by our doctor or dermatologist. There is no cure. You're just going to have to live with it. We have medications and creams that can help with your symptoms, but you may need to use them for the rest of your life. Now, I don't know about you, but my first reaction was to hell with that scenario. Long-term antibiotics together with the regular use of chemical face creams, these are not components that contribute to good health. Quite the opposite, I thought. But then reality sinks in, and it dawns on you that perhaps you have no option, because anything's better than walking around with this red spotty face, right? At this point in the diagnosis, I was experiencing those unavoidable feelings of despair that hit you when you feel so utterly helpless. So yes, initially I followed the advice of the so-called skin specialist to the letter. I took my daily antibiotics and I tried a selection of medicated rosacea face creams. And the end result of 6 months on these meds? Little to no visible improvement. The only thing that appeared to have any positive effect was azelaic acid cream. But if I had to put a number on it, then I'd say a 10% improvement at most. And that cream stings like hell. So ultimately all these useless meds were tossed in the bin. There had to be a better solution, and I was damn well going to find it. So here's what I did. First, I put my work and social life on hold. Nothing was going to distract me from my goal of once again having clear skin. Now, research was an integral part of my work and life extension, so the process of finding and analysing relevant data was second nature to me. I trawled endlessly through research data, documenting my findings as I went. However, it quickly became apparent that something vital was missing from these studies. Not a single one took a holistic approach to dealing with rosacea. It was more a case of let's see what effect therapy A has compared to therapy B compared to placebo. So irrespective of whether a study was blind, double-blind or whatever, they were all pretty much focused on finding some magic bullet that would cure the condition. That, in my opinion, is absolutely the wrong approach. It certainly hasn't been successful so far, so logic dictated that an entirely different way of treating the condition was necessary. I deduced that if I was going to have any chance of eradicating my rosacea, then I was going to have to attack it holistically. I decided to focus all my efforts on optimizing my immune system and overall health by systematically addressing every possible factor that might in some way be compromising it and worsening my symptoms. Now up until this point, I considered myself to be extremely healthy, and I assumed therefore that my immune function must be close to optimal. Well, time to rethink that one, I thought. If my immune system was in such good shape, then why had I been afflicted with rosacea? Something had to be amiss, and I was going to find it and fix it, whatever it took. Rosacea causes depression. There can be no argument about that. Just ask anyone who's ever suffered from the condition. The big problem with this, though, is that depression suppresses immune function. Therefore, if I was to have any real chance of success, it was paramount that I focus on being positive and upbeat. This really is key. So here's the mindset and attitude that I employed. First, I accepted that every medical condition has a cause. Therefore, every medical condition must be treatable. Sure, we may not always know what the cause is or the appropriate treatment, but simply the fact that we both must exist was all the motivation I needed to see this thing through. Following a full analysis of my research data, I decided that my rosacea treatment protocol was to include 6 separate interventions. And I would only proceed to add the next intervention once I had sufficient time to evaluate the results of the previous one. That way I'd know exactly which treatment was responsible for which benefits. Firstly, I stopped using all skin cleansing products except for a liquid soap intended for babies. It contained no chemicals, caused me zero skin irritation, and it didn't dry out my skin. It's actually still my product of choice to this day, and for anyone that might want to try it, I've left a link in the description below. Using only this one cleansing product resulted in a noticeable reduction in redness. And if I ever felt like my skin needed hydrating, then I'd simply apply organic aloe vera gel, which proved to be very cooling and caused me no irritation. Next, I stopped all sun exposure. Now I have to admit that this was a hard one for me. Water sports on the beach had always been an important part of my life, but for now at least they were going to have to be put on hold because anything longer than a couple of minutes in the sun was causing increased facial redness. But I should mention that I did take a vitamin D3 supplement in order to compensate for the lack of sun exposure. Following that, I was next forced to address my regular sauna use. Now, I'd always been a big fan of the sauna due to its many proven health benefits, but I now find myself suffering increased facial redness for several hours following each session. So the only option was to knock it on the head for now. But a little spoiler alert. I'm very happy to tell you that nowadays I can use the sauna without problems, and I can even enjoy sensible sun exposure without skin issues of any kind, but more on that later. I'd estimate that the overall benefit of these 3 simple changes was around a 20% improvement, although I'd attribute this mainly to less frequent flare-ups as opposed to any major reductions in the symptoms themselves. Obtaining quality sleep each and every night is quite simply an integral part of achieving optimal health. However, it's probably the most common factor that most people could improve on, and I was no exception. Before rosacea struck, my bedtime would vary between 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. depending on my work schedule or my social plans, but I'd always awaken by alarm clock each morning at 7 a.m. Now I knew from experience that a minimum of 7 hours sleep and a maximum of 8 seemed to provide me with optimal energy levels and mental function throughout the day. So here's what I did. I immediately set a fixed bedtime of 11 p.m. but allowed myself to awaken naturally between 6 and 7 a.m. each morning. That way I was always sleeping for just as long as my body required. Sleep quality is without doubt one of the strongest factors influencing both our immune system health and our mental function, so I saw this approach as vital. It took me less than a week to properly adapt to my new sleep schedule, and within the first month I was already feeling and seeing the benefits. Energy levels had increased, and my positive attitude was boosted by a further reduction in symptoms. If I had to put a number on it, then I'd say another 10% improvement. Let me also mention that in order to benefit my sleep patterns, I used the popular supplement melatonin. And for a full explanation regarding how to properly use this supplement and how to optimize your sleep quality, then please see my melatonin video elsewhere on this channel. Next, it was time to deal with those nasty little Demodex mites. Now, for anyone who hasn't heard of them, Demodex mites, also known as face mites, are parasites that live in our face and hair follicles. There's two types of Demodex mite, and they're both invisible to the naked eye. Demodex brevis live on the skin, and Demodex follicularum on hair. But here's where I got a shock. A little bit of research confirmed that people with rosacea can have up to 10 times as many Demodex mites on their skin as those without the condition. I also learned that the mites become most active in the dark and that they have several stages in their life cycle. After mating on the surface of the skin, they apparently go back into it to lay eggs before dying within the skin's layers. After death, the Demodex corpses become liquid and decompose inside the skin. When each of these tiny mites dies, they release bacteria into the skin, and those bacteria trigger an immune response that causes redness and inflammation. Now, one bacteria in particular carried by Demodex has been shown to stimulate an immune response in those with rosacea, so it seemed pretty obvious to me that Demodex must surely be contributing to my symptoms. Thankfully, getting rid of my Demodex problem was fairly straightforward. A quick search on Google revealed that pretty much anyone who's heard of a Demodex mite also knows that tea tree oil kills them effectively. So I got straight to it. I mixed tea tree oil with emu oil in a 50-50 mix for application to my eyebrows and eyelashes. And for application to my face and scalp, I used a 30% tea tree, 70% emu oil mix. This ratio caused me no skin sensitivity issues whatsoever. Now, the reason why I chose emu oil as a carrier oil for tea tree is because it's non-comedogenic, so it won't clog pores. It's also highly hypoallergenic, possesses anti-inflammatory properties, and can penetrate deep through the skin's layers, allowing it to effectively target Demodex brevis. Every night before bed for 7 days straight, I applied the appropriate mix of oil to my face, scalp, eyebrows, and eyelashes. Then in the morning, I just showered and washed it off. I experienced visible improvements, and by the end of the 7-day treatment, my skin looked noticeably smoother and clearer. Following that, I added 5% tea tree oil to my liquid soap for daily use. Now, this protocol resulted in a further 20% improvement in my rosacea symptoms. I was definitely making good progress now, with a 50% overall improvement so far. Reports of certain foods causing rosacea flare-ups are commonplace, and a quick search in Google will provide a list of the most commonly reported problematic foods. Now, at the time, I wasn't really aware of consuming anything in particular that exacerbated my own rosacea, other than perhaps alcohol, which I'd already cut out. However, I still decided to try an experiment. I selected one food group at a time and totally eliminated that food from my diet for a period of 4 weeks in order to gauge any improvements. But nothing appeared to make any noticeable difference. Not until this happened. I eliminated dairy. Within 3 weeks, the difference was significant. After 2 months of being dairy-free, I could finally see light at the end of the tunnel. I'd estimate that I was now 80% free of all rosacea symptoms. 3 months into my dairy-free experiment, I decided to try reintroducing cheese to see what might happen. Within only a few days, mild symptoms were returning, which only served to confirm the effect that dairy was having on my condition. My dietary strategy when eating to cure rosacea was based on optimizing my nutritional intake in a way that would also optimize my gut microbiome. As we now know, our microbiome is often referred to as our second brain. influencing everything from our thoughts to our immune system health. So in addition to carrying out the food group elimination tests, I also made sure to avoid all processed foods, primarily selecting whole foods in as close to the original form as possible. Now during this past decade, my diet has been leaning towards vegan, but I do occasionally still eat meat, fish and eggs, especially if eating out. If I were looking to put a label on my dietary practices, then I'd probably classify myself as a nutritarian, eating to satisfy nutrient requirements above all else. Nutritional supplements had always been an important part of my personal health program, and I always considered a high quality daily multivitamin to be a necessity in order to cover any dietary deficiencies. However, I was now being forced to look at supplements from a slightly different perspective. Which supplements in particular would most benefit the appearance of my skin? Two supplements stood out. The first supplement I chose was a powerful antioxidant called astaxanthin. It's a darkly pigmented substance which is produced by a particular type of microalgae, and it's the reason why salmon we eat are pink. Astaxanthin's powerful anti-inflammatory effects can also help calm the inflammation of rosacea, and it's been shown to provide a useful degree of UV protection, with its natural carotenoid pigments even adding a healthy colour to the skin. Several studies have also shown beneficial effects in relation to wrinkles and skin moisture levels. Now I noticed the benefits of taking this supplement within a very short period of time, and I continue to take it to this day. One daily 4mg capsule is all that's required, and if you'd like to know more about this amazing supplement, then you can watch my detailed astaxanthin video elsewhere on this channel. The second supplement I chose to take was iodine, and here was my reasoning. I learned that iodine deficiency in the developed world had increased considerably over the last 40 years. And I also noted the apparent steady increase in the rate of rosacea during the same period, with the condition now afflicting over 400 million adults worldwide. Now I knew that iodine was highly important for the proper functioning of the thyroid gland, which in turn has a direct influence over the appearance of our skin. But what I hadn't been aware of are two reasons why I might be iodine deficient. Firstly, I simply might not be getting enough iodine from my diet, and secondly, what I was ingesting might be getting blocked by three other elements from the same mineral family, those being fluoride, bromide and chlorine. Fluoride is often added to the water supply, and it's also a common additive in most toothpaste products. Bromide is present in pesticides, it's often used as a food additive in flour, and you can even find it lurking in many personal care products. And chlorine, well, it's present in drinking water, swimming pools and jacuzzis. Now the big problem is this. Chlorine, bromide and fluoride all compete for the same receptors that are used in the thyroid gland to capture iodine. Ultimately, this can inhibit thyroid hormone production with the resultant low thyroid state. But here's where it gets really interesting. There's actually several other tissues that absorb and utilize iodine, and these tissues include the skin. So if I did have an iodine deficiency, it certainly wasn't going to be benefiting my rosacea condition. My solution was to immediately begin supplementing with 6mg of iodine daily, which research indicated was sufficient to ensure that my thyroid and affected tissues had the necessary levels available to function correctly. I also made efforts to eliminate exposure to fluoride, bromide and chlorine. 1 month into my skin supplement protocol, and my condition had continued to improve. I'd estimate I was now 90% rosacea free, and to be honest, if the texture of my skin had just been a little bit better, then I'd consider myself to have returned to my pre-rosacea state. However, I did have one last stage to go, and this final stage turned out to be exactly what I needed in order to achieve my goal. The final part of my 6-stage protocol was to eliminate any chemical toxins stored within my fat cells. We're all exposed to these toxins on a daily basis, through the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, even the personal care products we put on our hair and skin. The problem is that over time, excesses of these toxins can accumulate in our fat cells, and they can include such things as endocrine disruptors, carcinogens, even skin irritants. So I figured that irrespective of whether or not they might be affecting my rosacea condition, getting rid of them could only be a good thing. My research indicated that the one and only truly effective protocol for eliminating chemical toxins stored within human fat cells was a detox developed by Dr. George Yu. This protocol was used by rescue workers suffering from toxic chemical inhalation following the 9/11 attacks, and it proved to be highly effective. Shortly after, Dr. Yu tweaked the protocol for use by the general adult population, and it's now extremely popular with anti-aging and life extension enthusiasts. Now initially I was a bit apprehensive about trying this detox because it does require the use of the sauna, and the last thing I wanted to experience at this point was a setback. However, I needn't have worried. It now appeared that the extreme heat of the sauna was no longer having any negative effect whatsoever on my rosacea condition. Quite the opposite in fact. With every sauna detox session, my skin was becoming closer to 100% clear. Now I'm not going to spend time here describing Dr. Yu's detox. Rather I'll direct you to a detailed video I made on the subject elsewhere on this channel. But what I will tell you right now is this. The results of this detox with regard to your overall health and the appearance of your skin can be truly transformational. To this day, I still repeat Dr. Yu's sauna detox once a month in order to prevent any further toxin buildup, and I still take regular saunas several times a week. So that was my 6-stage rosacea protocol in a nutshell. To the best of my knowledge, those who have tried it have all had worthwhile results, and some have even experienced a complete and permanent reversal of their symptoms. Fast forward to 2022, I'm still 100% rosacea free and have been for the past 12 years. It appears that my skin, together with those underlying factors that were causing my rosacea, have now fully reverted to their pre-rosacea state. But the most remarkable change for me is that sunshine, saunas, alcohol, stress, even dairy appear to no longer pose any threat to my clear skin. However, I would point out that for health reasons I choose to rarely consume dairy or alcohol. The bottom line is this. If you want to effectively deal with your rosacea condition, then it really does require a totally holistic approach. In reality, this applies not only to rosacea, but to our health in general. Perhaps if our doctors were better educated in these facts, then they wouldn't be so hasty in prescribing medications, because there's generally far more effective routes to achieving good health than popping pills. I really do wish you the very best of luck in dealing with your rosacea condition, and I'd love to hear your comments regarding your progress in dealing with this traumatic affliction. The sharing of such information can only serve to benefit us all. I'm Riker Black, many thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this presentation then please like, subscribe and comment. It really does help the channel grow. And as always, take care, be healthy, and see you again soon.